The Assessment Research and Program Evaluation website can be accessed through the Plano ISD Staff Only page. You'll know you're on the Staff Only website if the school icon and the selections at the top are in red. Blue is the public page. Or you can go to the tiny URL, Plano Assessment. Once you get here, you can click on Map in the center column. Click once to open the accordion. Click again to open the page. Students will be rostered in MAP periodically throughout the year. If you get a new student during the year, typically they will appear in the system to test after 3 days. It is not best practice to test a student on the first day they're enrolled in the district. If your student is not in the system and you need to test them, contact the assessment department. Campuses should not be adding any students to the NWEA system. There is one website for the teacher to use to set up testing sessions, monitor sessions, including pausing tests, and get reports. This is called the MARC system, Measurement and Reporting Center. You have a shortcut to this on your web desk. Note the bar graph icon. In this presentation, we will show this bar graph icon when the screenshot is from the teacher or proctor screen. There is another website for students to log on to take their test. There's a shortcut on the Windows Start menu or on the taskbar in Chromebooks. Notice the student icon. In this presentation, we will show the student icon when showing screenshots of what students will see on their computer. During testing, you as the proctor will need a computer to set up and monitor testing, and the students will need a computer to test. For students to access the Student Testing Center, if you're using Windows, desktops, or laptops, access the shortcut through the Start menu. If you're using Chromebooks, access the shortcut through the icon in the taskbar. Students do not log on to the Chromebooks, they just go directly to the taskbar. Both of these methods will take the student to the lockdown browser. This means the student will not be able to go into other websites while testing. If you're new to the district, look for an email from NWEA that will have your username and password. The email will come from MAP Autoresponder. Use this to log on to the MARC system. Note that your username is your full PISD email, including the @pisd.edu. Your password is not your network password, but one assigned to you from NWEA or created by you. If your password is not working to log into the MARC screen, first make sure you're using your full PISD email, and then click the Forgot Password option at the bottom of the page. If you do not have an NWEA account, contact Karen Simons in the Assessment Research and Program Evaluation Department. There are 4 steps to testing. First, setting up the testing session, logging on students to test, monitoring testing, and finally ending the session. The teacher or proctor who is testing students in the room will set up the testing session the morning of the test. Think of a testing session as a room where kids will test and a time period in which they will test. This can be either a class period or a test day, depending on the circumstances. To set up your testing sessions, go to the option that says Manage Test Sessions. If you are a specialist, ESL teacher, or special ed teacher, you do not necessarily have students rostered to you in Teams or Pinnacle. Instead, you'll want to find students who are rostered to other teachers in other classrooms. On the morning of testing, you'll select Manage Test Sessions and click on Find Students to Test. Here you can search by grade and teacher to find students, or you can search by name or ID. You'll fill in the appropriate information and click Search. This is a list of all students who meet your search criteria. Use the checkboxes next to student names to select only those students that you'll need to test. Then click Add Students. These students now appear in your testing session at the bottom of the page. If you need to add more students, search again and add more students. When the list at the bottom of the page is complete, you can click Test Now. Once you click Test Now, you'll have the option to assign the test to the students just as we did before. Select all students who need to take the same test, either by clicking the checkbox next to their names or by going to Select Status and choosing a waiting student. Then click on Assign Test. From the drop-down menu, select the test the students need to take, and you'll refer to the district testing calendar for dates and specific test names. You have now assigned the test to all of your students. Before you start testing, if you have students who have been provided accommodations while testing, you can document that in the system. Some accommodations are also embedded in the MAP system. Allowable accommodations can be found on the Assessment, Research, and Program Evaluation website for MAP. The accommodations are listed under Administration and MAP Allowable Supports. These students have all been pre-assigned the correct assessment. Some of these students may additionally need accommodations. You can assign or document those accommodations that the student receives during testing from this menu. Select the student by clicking the checkbox next to their name. Then select Assign Accommodations. There are some accommodations here that are part of the NWEA system and that the test can provide to the student. These are embedded features. Selecting those features will allow the student to access the features on the screen during the test. Other accommodations listed are non-embedded features. These are features that are not a part of the test environment, but providing these accommodations can be documented on this page. For example, a bilingual dictionary. Please note that not all these accommodations are allowable for all students. You must refer to the Allowable Accommodations document on the PISD staff webpage for the accommodations that you can provide to students in our district. If you're providing oral administration on a MAP reading test for a student according to the PISD Allowable Accommodations document, make sure to allow the oral administration of questions and answer choices only, not the oral administration of passages. Once you've selected the accommodations on this menu, click Assign at the bottom of the page. You'll notice that next to this student, we now have a yes in the accommodations column. That shows that we've added students to our testing session, we've assigned them a test, and now we can see that we've documented their accommodations. Now we are ready to test. So step 2 of the process is logging on students to test. NWEA provides student directions for the test that the proctor can read aloud. These directions let teachers know what kinds of support they can offer students while testing. The directions can be found on our website for MAP under MAP Testing Student Directions. The process of setting up a testing session takes anywhere from 30 seconds to 2 minutes at the very longest. Therefore, it is not difficult to set up the testing session the morning of the test. This is the test student window on the teacher or proctor screen. Note the bar graph icon indicating that this is the proctor screen. The testing session name and password are at the top of the page. This is what students will need to log on to the test. These are auto-generated by NWEA, and they are unique to each testing session, not each student. This is what you'll need to write on the board for students to see. This is what the students will see on his or her computer. I've included the student icon at the top to indicate that these are screens that students will see when they log in. The student will navigate to the website using the shortcuts installed on their computer. On a Windows device, they'll go to the magnifying glass and type NWEA and search for the Lockdown browser. On Chromebooks, before they log in to the Chromebook, they will go to the taskbar, select Apps, and select MAP. Students will log in using the testing session name and password that you have given them. Once the student has entered the test session name and password, they will click Join. When the student gets to the sign-in screen, they'll start typing his or her first name, and it will appear in the drop-down menu. The student will select his name, and then the test that you've already assigned will appear. Then the student will click Next. The student and teacher will then verify whether the information is correct, and then click Yes or No. This is your last opportunity to make sure that the right student is sitting at the right test. The students will have to wait until you've confirmed their test before they can begin. This message will appear on every student's screen until you confirm the student for testing. Your next step is to confirm your students from your Proctor screen. Notice that as the students log on and get to that page that says Wait to be confirmed, their status changes from a waiting student to be confirmed. In the top, you can click Confirm Now to confirm these students. Now, you may have to click this button a few times to capture all students who are waiting to be confirmed. It may take a minute once the student gets logged in until their status says To be confirmed. You can also click the Refresh button at the top of the page. This is what will appear on the student computer once the teacher has confirmed students on their Proctor computer. The student can now click Start Test and begin testing. Step 3 of the process is monitoring testing. As the student begins testing, you can see his progress on your screen. If a student needs to take a break from testing longer than 30 minutes, click the checkbox next to the student's name and then choose Select Action and choose Suspended. Then have the student log off the test. This pauses the test for breaks longer than 30 minutes. When the student returns, click the checkbox next to the student's name, click Select Action, and choose Test Again. This does not start the test over. It begins testing where the student left off. If the student is completing testing on another day, he will just log in and you can confirm him and his test will begin as usual. You also see here an option to pause the test. Pausing is for breaks shorter than 30 minutes. If the student is gone longer than 30 minutes, the test automatically moves to suspend. It is really not necessary to pause a test for short breaks. If the student needs to go to the restroom or take a break, they can just leave the test and go. If a test is paused, to come back to testing, you would select Resume. In the drop-down, you also have the option to terminate a test. Terminating the test deletes the test event and all student responses from the system. Only select this option if you want the student to completely restart testing. We cannot undo this action. If this screen appears on the student's computer, the proctor can intervene with the student and resume testing, terminate testing, or choose to resume testing on another day. The student will not be able to move on until the proctor takes some action. This is what the alert looks like on the teacher or proctor screen, an orange triangle next to the student's name. This gives you the chance to talk to the student, give them a break, or let them stop for the day, depending on their needs. The final step in our process is ending the test session. When a student finishes testing, their score will appear on the student screen, which you can print if you would like. When you are done testing for the day in a particular class period in secondary, if you have students who are still testing, click on Select Students, Select Action, and choose Suspend. Then you can end the testing session. Take note of students who have not begun testing or who need to finish testing on another day. Simply click Save and Exit. Second day of testing. To search for students who began testing but did not finish on the first day, or who have not yet begun testing. Assuming not all students will complete testing in one day, you can search for students in a similar way to how you created your testing session on day 1. Click Manage Test Sessions and click Find Students to Test. Then click the Test History Search tab at the top of the page. From here, you will search for students who have not begun testing or have begun but not completed testing. Choose the school, the grade, the instructor, or class at the top of the page. Then select Test Name. Under Testing Status, select Not Yet Tested and Suspended Tests. Then click Search. Select the students from the list that you will need to test. If you're a specialist or special ed teacher, you may not be testing all of these students by yourself. Just select the students you're going to test and create your session. Whoever is testing the other students will search for them and select them to put in a different session. If you're a classroom teacher continuing to test in your own room, go ahead and select all the students even if some are absent or you will not get to them today. It does not hurt to have all these students in a testing session. Then click on Add Students. Click on Test Now. You may have to scroll down a bit to see the button. From here, you're going to follow the same procedure from earlier to assign tests and document accommodations. In the scenario where most students need to take Math, but one student needs to take Reading, assign Math to every student, then select the one student who needs to take Reading, as I've done here in this example, and then click on Assign Test. And from the drop-down menu, select the test that the student needs to take. Once the student tests have been assigned and accommodations are documented, you are ready to test. Note that although some of these students have begun testing and some have not started at all, it says Awaiting Student for all students. That does not mean the student needs to begin again. When the student logs back in, the test will pick up from where they left off. Notice that the testing session name and password have changed. This changes for each session that you create. This is what the students will need to log on to test. From here, follow the same procedures as before to log on students, confirm them, and begin testing. You'll repeat this process each day until testing is complete. This is where you will find the Plano ISD District Testing Calendars. In the center of the page, you'll find Map Resources. Click once to open the accordion, and then click again to access the page. In the Technical Support section, you'll find the Map Troubleshooting Guide. Almost every question that you would encounter while administering MAP can be answered by referring to the Troubleshooting Guide. It is handy to have that with you when you are testing students, especially for the first time. Should you have any questions about MAP, every campus has a MAP testing coordinator that can support you in the administration and interpretation of the data. In addition, the Assessment, Research, and Program Evaluation Department in Plano ISD is here to help you as well.